welcome to Mat Chat. I can vent a lot of frustrations on the mat, and that brings me to today's Mat Chat. It's not easy being Fat Albert. As you can see, I've gained a little bit of weight over the years, but my highest weight was 301 pounds. I'm now down to 235 pounds. But I wasn't always this big. In fact, in my younger years, I used to do wrestling and karate. And I'm still in karate, but now I'm practicing the art of Taekwondo. But we're discussing that a little bit today. But today I'm going to read out of scripture, because this is, after all, Mat Chat. As you see, I got the mat, I got some fighting equipment back, sparring equipment back there, got the punching bag, I got another punching bag back in Vermont that I have yet to get here. My plan someday is to open up the dojo, lose a little bit of this weight here, a little bit more weight. I've already lost about 60 pounds over the last 2 years. My goal is to get back into shape, maybe get back into a little bit of law enforcement, do some sheriffing work, do some preaching work, do some chaplain work, have a dojo, have a studio to continue in the martial arts. So today's scripture is taken out of 2 Timothy, and I'm going to read out of chapter 4, starting at verse 6. For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all those who have longed for his appearing. Well, sometimes I wish his appearing would be sooner than later, but there's much work to be done still. I've written down some notes because I tend to forget. I'm getting to be 44 in June, so I tend to forget a few things here and there. Maybe I've taken a few lumps to the heads over the years during sparring and during some physical confrontations. So I've taken a few lumps to the head, which hasn't helped the memory process any. So what the Lord's really revealed to me for this Mat Chat is it's not always easy being Fat Albert. And you're like, where do you get that? Well, I usually do voice impressions back in my younger days. I usually do Scooby-Doo for the kids that are out there. Hoi, want a Scooby snack? Or some of my other ones was doing the impressions of Fat Albert. And I did this once. I'll do it now. It's Fat Albert. Well, I did that impression once, and it wasn't so great. I remember wrestling one time in my more younger years. I was 150 pounds soaking wet. And of course, you know I'm not very tall. I'm 5'8". But over the years, I think I've lost half an inch in height. Happens when you get older. But still, it's not the size of the person that we learn while we're in fighting. It's your heart and it's your ability to train. So back in the younger days when I wrestled, it wasn't very popular in school, and you did everything that you could to try to be popular, try to get in with the girls, you know, try to make the girls like you back in high school. Well, I had a pretty good ability in wrestling. I was a pretty good wrestler, and I'm fairly good at the martial arts. And back then, you know, you wanted to be your person, you wanted to be who you wanted to be, and part of this Mat Chat is being real, being who you are. Integrity and perseverance are two of the tenets that I'm learning now in Taekwondo. And keeping your integrity is what I started to learn a long time ago. And that's what the messages have been about that I've been preaching on Sunday mornings, different various ways of integrity, how we can keep our integrity. Well, back in high school, when I'm trying to impress the girls, trying to be my own man, trying to be my own person, I had a group of people that were doing the same thing. I used to get picked on a lot. Me and my friend were easy targets a lot of times. And I remember this one time I joined the wrestling team. I wasn't good at football. I didn't really have the stature, really weren't a good quarterback. Soccer really wasn't for me. Baseball I liked, and I still like the Red Sox. Go Red Sox. Hey, they haven't lost a game this year. They're undefeated. But the Yankees, I read this on Facebook today, the Yankees they haven't won a game. And the Red Sox are undefeated, so hey. But anyway, I found my niche in the wrestling field, and I was pretty good at it. And for being someone my stature, you had to find your niche somehow, and I found it in wrestling. Well, I remember these group of people in school, and they used to pick on me. And this one person was on the wrestling team as well. We'll call him Al. Not Pastor Al, the one who mentored me in the ministry, but this guy's name was Al. Well, Al was a pretty good big guy. I think he was about 6'5" and weighed about, well, to me, he looked like he was over 500 pounds, but he was a little out of shape. And one day, while practicing, the coach put us into a wrestling match, just for, karate, we call that sparring, just practicing. So we got practicing, and I figured out I could handle myself pretty well against Albert. Well, his name was Al. We call him Albert because I'm going with the whole Fat Albert thing. So we got wrestling, and the girls were watching. They were kind of doing their thing on the side while we were practicing. And so I decided to try to make a name for myself using my second gift that I thought I had of being a voice interpreter. So when I rolled Al to the mat, I went, hey, 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 it's Al! Well, that's because his shirt had rolled up and the fat rolled out, so I decided to pick on him. Well, Albert had tears in his eyes after, and well, he got up, he was a little angry. That's one of the first matches I ever lost, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because back then I was getting to know the Lord. Wasn't a preacher or anything yet, wasn't really serving in the church, but acquainted with the church. Youth group. And Al looked at me, and he said, James, out of all the people, actually he said, Jimmy, out of all the people, I would have never thought that you would have stooped so low to humiliate me like this. That cut to the heart. Bad. And wrestling, the coach was disappointed in me. It didn't really, some of the girls laughed, but some of the girls that had some morals to them, they were pretty upset. I lost respect to some of the team members, even though some of them laughed because they were jokers. But a lot of people were upset with me that day. They said, out of all the people, we never thought you would be like that. That was a tough lesson for me back then. But after that, Al and I, we mended fences. I apologized. I ate crow. I ate humble pie. I asked the Lord for forgiveness. And I asked the youth, I had been getting help from the youth leader. And he helped me through it, said, hey, man, you really need to apologize and really be sincere about your apology. And that brought me to today's scripture about being faithful to God. the Apostle Paul, at the end of his 30 years of being an apostle and servant of Christ, knew it was time to be done. It was the end of his life. It was the end of his ministry. And he said, I have fought the good fight. I have finished well. You know, when I enter into tournaments, when I enter onto the mat, there's integrity and there's respect that has to be on both ends. You can't degrade somebody. You cannot humiliate somebody. Even on the mat, there's respect. Even on the mat, there's integrity. And what you do on the mat shows how you live your life. I learned that at a young age. But I had to take my lumps. I've taken a few blows to the head, and a few people will probably tell you it shows. But I have a retina problem because of it. I recently found out I had a detached retina that was an old injury that I didn't really realize. But I had taken some hits to the head, some pretty hard ones through wrestling and doing the martial arts. You know, because when you're young, you feel like you're invincible and that you can do some things. Well, what really matters is the things from your heart and what you're doing for God is what really matters. You want to finish this race well. It doesn't matter how many matches you win. I mean, I always want to go to the mat and win my matches. I always want to do the best that I can. I always want to come to the mat with every ability that I've learned, but I also want to come to the mat with integrity and respect. And to respect the other people, to respect the other person. I want to make sure I wrote down everything the Lord would have me to have. So back when I was fighting Fat Albert, well, I did it again! But that was the name of the thing. It's not easy being Fat Albert. But I learned not to say Fat Albert in the derogatory manner anymore. Basically, I say it for the cartoon. But back then, when I was fighting Al, I was doing it for the crowd. The cheer of the crowd. Be popular. Woo, James, you got the power. Don't have the power. God has the authority. God has the power. I had some uncanny ability to wrestle on the mat, and I used it one time against the Lord. I didn't serve the Lord in that manner. And then there was a time in ministry when I was a lead pastor in one of my first churches. It wasn't a healthy church at first, and it weren't through me that the church was growing. I mean, the Lord used me, used my wife, used my family, used other people. The church started to grow and become healthy again. But then there came a point after 8 years, and that's a statistic, I don't know, but after a point of 8 years, it started to decline. I felt even my attitude had changed. And I was really concerned about things. And a person that didn't attend the church said, I had noticed the great things that had been happening in the church since you've been there, but it does seem like something's been lost. So I got contemplating on that because I knew this person was right. I'm like, what is lost? And the person told me, they said, ask yourself what you did when you first got there and what is happening now. And the one thing that the Lord brought to mind was, remember back when you fought Al? Remember when you went to that mat and humiliated that man? You were looking for the cheers of the people. You were listening to the people. You let all these voices get in your head and you just listened to the people. You didn't listen to God. You didn't do it God's way. You didn't have the integrity that you had when you first got in here. You wanted to be popular. You listened to the cheers of the people. And that reminded me when I come to the mat, those voices go away except for what the instructors taught you. And I thank Sensei Gold, and I thank Master Dunleavy and Grandmaster Dunleavy back in Vermont, because they taught you how to bring integrity and respect and love onto the mat. It's not all about the fighting. It's all not about the cheers. It's about the integrity. What are you bringing to life? How are you running this race of life? We don't run it in fear. We do run it in fear of the Lord, a healthy fear in the Lord. But the healthy fear in the Lord helps us to see when you're not bringing integrity onto the mat. It helps us when we see we're not bringing respect onto the mat into the life that we're living. So we do need the Lord. You need to bring on that Lord. You need to bring the Lord onto the mat every time you go onto the mat. The mat is your life. This mat is part of my life because it's where I can exercise, get healthy, mentally and physically. But I also bring the Bible to the mat. I bring the Lord to the mat with me to help remind me that I need to live this life in integrity and help others through it. So finish this race well. And that's the word from your instructor today. Reverend Gamble. Scooby-Doo. You have a great one.